TJ Moore might be one of the smoothest vertical receivers in college football this season. Was a high-end recruit out of Tampa Catholic, an All-American Bowl selection, and he got to Clemson and produced immediately as a true freshman. Caught 45 passes, 651 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Then in 2025, after Bryant Wesco Jr. went down, Moore stepped into the wide receiver 1 role and led Clemson with 52 catches, 837 yards, and 4 touchdowns. The speed is real, the hands are reliable, the vertical ability is real, and the yak production is a major part of the profile, but the evaluation has real questions. He is not a good blocker right now. He only won 6 of 18 contested catches, and the physical press corners rerouted him way too often. And a 1-yard game against Troy really stood out as a question mark for him. So today we're breaking down why TJ Moore is currently wide receiver 9, why the starter caliber foundation is there, and what he has to prove in 2026 to become more than a smooth rotational weapon. But before we get into that, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, follow along, make sure that you keep up with Draft Yoda here on our way to 100 prospects before college football kicks off. TJ Moore is currently sitting at an 8.74 out of 10, making him my number 77 overall prospect. Wide receiver number 9 going into the season. And this is one of those wide receiver evaluations where the foundation, it's really easy to see. He can run, he's smooth, he can threaten vertically, he can eat cushions, has reliable hands, can create yak, and he's already real production inside a major program. He's already shown it. But the reason he's wide receiver 9 and not higher is because the physical parts of the position still have to catch up. The blocking is nowhere near good enough. The contested catch profile is not strong enough. The frame can get rerouted by physical corners. And there are games where the production disappears when the free access is not there. And that makes this evaluation simple but important. TJ Moore has starter level receiving traits. Now he has to prove that he can win when the game gets dirty. Growing up in Tampa, Florida, went to Tampa Catholic. Production there was explosive. 92 receptions, 2,293 yards, and 30 touchdowns across his junior and senior seasons. That's big time, Senior year, 50 catches, 1,272 yards, 17 touchdowns, 25.4 yards a catch. Let me say that again. 25.4 yards a catch. That number tells you exactly what kind of player he is. He's not just, I'm catching screens, so I'm living underneath. No, he's creating explosive plays. He's threatening defenses vertically. He's turning receptions into touchdowns, and he's changing the field at a whim. Landed at Clemson, was considered a top 100 recruit, rated 5-star by one outlet, 4-star by two. He was one of those players that Clemson really valued in his class. And for a young receiver, Clemson gave him an early opportunity. Freshman receivers don't always get immediate volume. They have to learn an offense. They have to adjust to college coverage. They have to handle the speed of the game. They have to earn the quarterback trust. And Moore did that very quickly at Clemson. 2024 caught 45 passes for 651 yards, 5 touchdowns across 14 games. That is strong freshman production. And he wasn't alone. Bryant Wesco Jr. made Clemson, the first power conference team in the league since at least 2000 to feature two freshmen each catching over 650 yards and 5 touchdowns in the same season. And that's a major note. It tells you Clemson had young receivers who immediately looked like they were going to become future stars. Moore was not just being carried by the system. Oh, he was part of a rare freshman receiving duo. He produced early, he made plays, and he earned trust. You know, 2024, Moore's role changed. Wesco Jr. went down with a season-ending injury, and Moore had to step into a clear wide receiver one role. And that matters. It's one thing to be a talented freshman sharing attention. It's another to become the guy defenses know they have to account for. Moore started all 13 games, had 52 receptions, 837 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Got third team all ACC honors. You know, it's a strong sophomore season. Not perfect, not dominant every week, but strong. You know, and through 27 career games, has 97 catches, 1,487 yards, and 9 touchdowns. That's some real production before even turning into a junior. You know, the vertical movement is something that's going to stand out in anybody who watches his tape. You know, he eats cushion, he stresses top coverage, he makes corners respect the deep ball. That matters because vertical threats change defensive spacing. If a corner has to protect deep, underneath windows open up. If a safety has to shade over the top, the middle of the field changes. If a defense does not respect the vertical speed, Moore can run by them. It creates space for running backs and tight ends and slot receivers underneath him to really make huge plays. Unfortunately, Clemson's quarterback has not been the best, I will say, during that time span, and wasn't able to feast on that opening as much as another quarterback might have. Another thing that really jumps out is his hands. I love his hands. Moore has only 2 drops on 82 targets all season. That's excellent. You know, it's one of the biggest reasons he sits inside my top 80. A lot of receivers can run, a lot of can separate, they can create flash plays, but if a quarterback can't trust the hands, the role changes. Moore's hands give him a stable foundation. His catches are clean. You know, he does not waste many opportunities. He can be trusted when Clemson creates an opening, and that's important because he is not a contested catch monster right now. You know, so when the ball is there cleanly, he has to finish, and he usually does. 399 yards after the catch is a big number that jumps off the page as well. It tells you he's not just a downfield receiver. Clemson used him in the quick game. They could get him the ball underneath and let him turn short throws into bigger plays, and that matters for your NFL projection because a receiver who can win vertically and create after the catch, he gives the offense options. You know, you can throw him quick access routes. You can glance routes, put him on crossers. You can attack space. You can make the defense tackle. Moore gives you that ability because he has that ability. The SMU game is the one that if I was on his staff, I would be sending out to everybody. 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's the version of TJ Moore that makes you see the starter upside. You know, when he gets clean access in the passing game and it's in rhythm, he can stress defenses quickly. He can win over the top. He can create chunk plays, and he can put points on the board. That game is one of the strongest pieces of evidence in the profile because it shows what happens when the speeds, hands, and route timing all come together for him. He's a very smooth strider. I haven't got to say that about a lot of receivers yet this year, but he is very smooth when he strides. Some receivers are explosive but frantic. Moore's not that. He's calm, smooth, and he's smooth in a way that building speed can be deceptive. You know, corners may not realize how quickly he's eating up space until he's already there and they're in trouble. And that's a valuable trait, in my opinion. He can stay balanced. He can track a ball. He can adjust. And it helps him win vertical routes. Nobody's perfect, though. Let's hit the big glaring issue. For TJ Moore, the glaring issue is blocking. Moore is a poor blocker right now. Both the effort and technique need to come along. It matters because wide receivers in the NFL, blocking is not optional. You have to stay, if you want to stay on the field, you have to block in the NFL, especially with all the play, with all the outside run, outside zones, screens, perimeter runs, the RPOs. Receivers don't have an option anymore. They have to be able to block. They have to compete. They have to fit their hands. They have to stay attached. They have to avoid killing the play. And for Moore, that's his homework. You know, that is, if I'm his coach, that's the first thing I'm circling on the board for him to study is blocking. Second thing that's coming on the board, we're working on contested catches, because 6 out of 18 tight window targets, that's not good enough. It's one of the biggest separators between a rotational receiver and a trusted starter. You know, can you win when you're covered? Can you finish when the defender's on your hip? Can you play through contact? Can you help your quarterback when the throw isn't perfect? Right now, Moore's best work comes when he's clean. That's not a bad thing, but it makes the role very specific. If he wants to climb, he has to work on his contested catches. He also needs to work on the physical press coverage. Moore has a slim 200-pound frame, and stronger corners have shown they can reroute him. You know, that matters because timing receivers can't afford to get disrupted early. You know, if a corner knocks him off the route, the quarterback's timing changes. If the release gets delayed, the window closes. If the route gets widened, the spacing breaks. That's the challenge. Moore has enough speed to win if he gets moving, but he has to get stronger off the line of scrimmage. I mentioned it earlier. 1 yard against Troy is a glaring red flag. You know, that kind of disappearance matters. You know, high-level receivers find a way to stay involved. Even when the defense has a plan, even when the free releases aren't there, even when the first few targets don't hit, a 1 yard game tells me there are still weeks where the role can vanish, and that can't happen in 2026. I'm not saying he needs 150 yards every game, but I can't have a 1 yard game again. That can't happen if I'm TJ Moore. You know, 2026 is a season that gives Moore a chance to become a clear face of Clemson's receiver room. The checklist is pretty simple. You know, keep the hands elite, keep stretching the field, keep creating after the catch, add strength, improve as a blocker. You know, win more contested catches, beat physical press more consistently, and raise the weekly floor. Don't disappear on me again. If he does that, he can climb, because this receiver, he's got a strong foundation. You know, you don't just invent speed, smooth movement, or reliable hands. Those are already there. You know, he has to add a physical piece to turn a talented receiver into a trusted one. With how clustered some of this group is after the top 3, there's a lot of room to move. TJ Moore, currently sitting at an 8.74 out of 10, number 77 overall, wide receiver 9, has the ability to move. He's a smooth vertical receiver with plus speed, reliable hands, strong yards after the catch, ability, and proven production inside Clemson's offense. You know, the concerns are also clear. He's not a good blocker. Only 6 of 18 in contested catches, physical press being able to reroute him, and the quiet stretches make the evaluation pause. The hands and the speed are the foundation. The blocking and contested work are the homework. And if TJ Moore adds strength and toughens up on the dirty plays, that is wide receiver football, He has a clear route to be a top NFL wide receiver in the draft. Not the top, but in the top wide receivers of the draft. But that's my board. That's how I see TJ Moore. How do you see him? You know, is he one of the smoothest vertical receivers? Can he climb higher than wide receiver 9 with a big 2026 season? How much should reliable hands and vertical speed matter if the contested catching and blocking still need a lot of work? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, follow along as we are on our way to over 100 prospects before college football kicks off. As always, I am Draft Yoda, Bill Workman, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd. And we will catch you guys in the next one.